Alright, what's up guys? It's Higgins in Japan here with another edition of the Friday video. The Friday video is the video that I make on Fridays on the way home from work. And I'm actually not on the way home from work. I'm actually headed to Daiso to pick up a couple of things. And so yeah, I'm actually going to take the longer route to Daiso just because I wanted to talk and make a video for you guys. So let's do that, shall we? In this week's video, I wanted to talk about something that I'm actually writing a blog about for the City Cost website. And if you weren't sure or didn't know, there's a link in the description. Excuse me, but I write a blog, or write for a blog, or write articles for. Anyway, there's stuff online that you can read that I've written. Anywho, stuff about life in Japan, and one of the things that I saw recently, and something that kind of creeps up from time to time, is people having a certain reaction or a certain what's the word I'm looking for? They kind of have the assumption that when they come to Japan and they become a teacher that that like being an ALT or an NLT means that you're like a teacher. And so that means that you can do things like a teacher. And something that I saw that stuck out in a comment, okay, you need to go, it's a green light. Thank you. Something that I saw is something about discipline. And so discipline in the classroom. And let me first start by saying it, if you are an ALT or an NLT, if you are an English teacher, you are not a licensed teacher for the Japanese school system. Now, if you work in a public school, private schools are a whole different deal, and so I can't comment on that because I don't work for a private school. I work at a public school through another company, and so that's the whole thing, is you don't work for that company. Or I'm sorry, you don't work for that school. And also you're not a licensed teacher. Now, you can become a licensed teacher, but it is very difficult, and entails a lot of things that, again, I can't speak about because I'm not a licensed teacher. I am an English teacher that works at a school, a few schools actually, and I work through a different company. That's how that whole thing works. That being said, discipline is not something that you can do as an English teacher. For a multitude of reasons, but the very basic of reasons is legally you are not allowed to. Discipline, yelling at students, that sort of thing. It doesn't matter what lines you think the student has crossed. It doesn't matter what you think the student should be doing that they're not doing, that you've maybe asked them to do. When you get down to it, you are not a licensed teacher. You are not legally allowed to do those things. As such, as an unlicensed teacher, you're not even legally allowed to be in a classroom teaching by yourself. And so, as an elementary school teacher, the homeroom teacher will be in the back of the room, or if they decide to help you out with your lesson, which they don't have to do, they will be there in the classroom because they legally have to be. You cannot be legally in the room with students by yourself. It's a whole insurance thing. If a kid gets hurt, or any number of things. I've even had the case where the homeroom teacher just isn't in the room. They leave, but they will send someone else in, or the homeroom teacher has to go to a meeting or has to go somewhere else, and say the vice principal or the principal will even show up. They just will show up in your classroom and literally just stand at the back of the classroom. And their job is to make sure that the kids don't kill themselves. I mean, that's a funny way of saying it, but they are in charge of the discipline. They are in charge of all that sort of thing. That way, you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. And as I talked about it on Mully's podcast that I was on months and months ago, kids like to invade your space, invade your private space, poking and whatever they want to do. Like they are kind of just they don't care about your personal space, and you kind of need to just get over that really quickly, because kids, I mean, if they are not physically hurting you or physically harming you, then they're just being kids and they're wanting to goof around, and you're the English teacher and you stand out, and so they want to just be kids around you. And so the things that I've heard is like, oh, when I come to Japan, I'm going to be the strictest teacher. No, you're not. You are going to be a fired teacher is what's going to happen. Because if you think that you're going to be able to discipline students, or if you think that you're going to be able to punish students or anything like that, you will be quickly finding yourself out of a job. Especially if you ever lay hands on a student, you will be finding yourself a new job. You will find yourself out of the country. And so I say this to lead up to another point. And I've stopped driving because I'm at Daiso now. But let's just focus back on me for a second, shall we? I say all of this because I want to help you out as a teacher if you come to Japan. But also, there's another side of it that I kind of want to briefly touch on. And I talk about this more in the article because it's more fleshed out. And I feel like this video is just me trying to like process some more ideas that maybe I want to incorporate into that article. But the other side of that is that you don't know the other side of your students. And I mean the other side as in the side of the student that you don't see outside of the classroom. And I've been teaching for a long time. I've only been teaching in Japan. This is my 5th contract year. But before Japan, I was teaching in the States. I was a youth pastor for a few years. Many of you don't know that. I was a youth pastor for a few years. 5 years, something like that. And also did some private teaching. You know, I did some retail work, but like was still doing private stuff in the background. That being said, I've been teaching for a while, and so like there's this other side of students that you don't see, and that you might not see if you don't take the opportunity to invest some time with your students outside of class. And there's good and bad that comes with investing your time with the students. I would say it's like 99% good, and then there's the occasional bad. And the bad, I mean the side of the students that you can see if they open up to you outside of class, which occasionally can happen. The students don't trust you right away. And so when you first get to a school, there's a point where they don't trust you, they don't know you. It takes them a while to warm up to you. But if you go out of your way and you make the effort, then your students begin to trust you. And with that comes the opportunity for them to open up to you about things that maybe they don't have anybody else to talk to with. And so it's kind of a weird situation because you're not really quite a teacher and you're not a parent and you're kind of a friend. And so your students will trust you. I mean, if they see that you have put in the time and effort to invest in their lives, they're going to notice that. They're going to want to trust you. And that's a big deal because sometimes what can happen, and this is like the 0.1% or the 1% bad side, is that you can get students that will open up to you and tell you about things that can be pretty heartbreaking, can be pretty real, you know? And so, man, especially in junior high, because that's like all drama. That's just crazy drama. But, you know, and it's happened to me before, and it's honestly, it's something that you don't really, you can't really prepare for. And you can't really you don't really expect it, and it's one of those things where you hear a story and you just like leave at the end of the day, and you just drive home and you just turn off all the music and you just drive home in silence, and you don't talk, you don't return text messages from people, and you just go home and you just sit in the shower and cry. Not really, not that last part, but it's just one of those things where you can have the opportunity to be very impactful in your students' lives if you take the opportunity to do it. And I really think that you should, if you're going to be here as a teacher. The problem, no, I'm not going to talk about the problem with English teaching. That's a whole nother video that we can go into. But needless to say, if you give the students an opportunity to trust you, if you give the students an opportunity to see that you're a person that cares about who they are inside the classroom and outside of the classroom, first of all, it's extremely rewarding. Like, being a teacher is the best job I've ever had. But it can also be a little difficult with, sometimes when you hear things about students. Now, that being said, if a student tells you about something about abuse or something like that, that's something that you need to report or tell someone else. Like, I'm not saying if a student says, "Oh, you can't tell anybody this," like, if it's something that important, you obviously have the responsibility to, tell somebody about that. It's just been a weird couple of weeks with things in the news and things personally that I've seen that have kind of brought me to the place where I think that people need to be good English teachers and need to talk to their students and motivate their students. That's what you're there to do as a job, as a teacher. That's what your job should be. As an English teacher, your goal should be to teach them and to motivate them. It shouldn't be to yell at them. It shouldn't be to discipline them. That's not your job, so don't do it. Be a good English teacher, guys. If you decide to come to Japan. If you have any more questions for me or comments or suggestions, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. As always, facebook.com/Higgins in Japan. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to go to Daiso, which is just right back there, and buy some stuff. Have a good one, guys. Peace.